This morning, I extended our local state of emergency for another week as we continue to manage the flood situation here in Abbotsford. I also issued an evacuation order and an evacuation alert last night for properties impacted by potential landslides. We are now through the second of the 3 weather events that have been forecasted to impact our community, and I am pleased to share that at this point, we are holding our own. Over the last several days, I have witnessed firsthand the results of all of the efforts that have been put forward protecting our community from further damage. And I want to reiterate to all of our residents that I am confident that we have done all that we can do to keep our community safe. Today, I remain hopeful that we will make it through the final weather event forecast for Tuesday and Wednesday this week with only minimal impacts. Although the Nooksack River overflowed yesterday, we did not see any water cross over from Washington State in the eastern portion of the Sumas Prairie Lake bottom, which is good news as that remains our most critically impacted area. And the water levels in the flooded portion of the Sumas Prairie Lake bed remain stable with an overall decrease of 2 inches over the last 24 hours. With the approximately 120 millimeters of rain we received over the weekend, there are still flood impacts in this region with 8 to 10 inches of water running south to north over Vi Road east of Sumas Way, and Vi Road was again closed earlier this morning. We anticipate that the reinforcement efforts that we started last week by adding a top layer of rock along the dike running from Sumas River to the Barrowtown pump station will be complete today. Finally, our Barrowtown floodgates were able to be opened early this morning, which means the Sumas River once again was able to flow into the Fraser River. In Huntington Village, water has recently come up, and there is approximately 2 feet at Boundary and 2nd Avenue. At 4 o'clock in the morning, it was dry. I was out there myself. This is the water that we were expecting from the Nooksack River overflow yesterday, and the evacuation order for Huntington remains in place. In conversations with Whatcom County officials earlier, we understand that flooding is still active across the border and that we will continue to experience flooding over the next few days from water stored in fields upstream of the road crossings at the border. I just spoke with Mayor Christensen of Sumas, who has reconfirmed the flow of this water coming our way. The Provincial Agricultural Operations Branch, working out of the Abbotsford Emergency Operations Center, has been working with our ag producers, facilitating feed and water where required, assisting with disposal efforts and providing access permits for evacuation order areas. Overnight, the Canadian Armed Forces continued with sandbagging efforts and have been essential in getting countless sandbags in place across the community in the last 24 hours. I'd like to thank the many volunteers that also showed up yesterday and overnight to support these efforts. The support of our armed forces has been critical in our ability to respond to this emergency, and I cannot overemphasize how valuable this support from the federal government has been and will continue to be as we start to focus our energy on recovery and rebuilding. The province has also been instrumental in our response efforts, and we look forward to continued conversations regarding the city's recovery. Many people don't know this, but the City of Abbotsford is the largest ag-producing jurisdiction in Canada on a per-acre basis. Our community is also the central hub for communities that make up the region of the Fraser Valley. As we have seen, Abbotsford has critical infrastructure that, if it fails, has a significant impact on the economic viability of our region and our province. Once we are able to bring the floodwaters down, our energy will need to be focused on rebuilding our dikes to modern standards and upgrading the Barrowtown pump station. The work we have done over the past few weeks has been very helpful, although that work is just a repair. The rebuilding of this critical infrastructure was a subject of my conversations with Prime Minister Trudeau and Deputy Premier Mike Farnworth on Friday last week, and will continue to be the conversation that we will have with both the federal and provincial governments going forward. Their support for these vital upgrades will make the difference between us potentially dealing with another mass flooding event in the future that impacts our farmers and shuts down our key transportation corridors. As always, we will continue to keep our community informed of changes and updates in the water levels in Abbotsford through our daily updates, as well as on the City of Abbotsford website and social media channels. This is my update for you today, and I will now take any questions.
Hi there, Kamal Karmali, Global News. For our audience, can you just paint a picture about the flow of the water and why that dam was needed last night in terms of where that water is coming from and flowing and why it was going through Highway 1 and what portion of it as well?
So this is on Highway 1 that you're talking about?
The Tiger Dam that was built last night.
I have very little information other than there was a dam out there. You will have to talk to the MOTI. It's their jurisdiction. I have been focused on the rest of the city, so I don't have any information to share.
Have they given you any indication on when everyone might reopen?
I haven't received any information, and that would be something that would be staff to staff. I didn't check on that. So I have no information on the dam, but I can get that information if you want. I mean, if there is information that they shared with us.
It seems like mostly good news that you're sharing today. When it comes to Tuesday storms, a lot of people are still expressing concern. What do you want to say to them in terms of why it may not hit as hard or that you're prepared? I mean, why isn't it as concerning as many people are, I guess, initially thought it would be?
Yeah. Well, the second storm, there's two things that happened. One is the water didn't come here as quickly as it was predicted on the U.S. side. We were told that we could expect it in a shorter time than the flood of 2020, and that in 5 or 6 hours it could be here. It took, I think, 19 hours to get here. So there's less water. But it also had a lot to do with the Fraser River dropping, so we could open up the floodgates at 1:30 this morning and allow that Sumas River to drain, so we have way more capacity there today than we did yesterday. So those two things in combination make me very comfortable, and I feel much better today than I did yesterday at this point on the second event. The third one is still an unknown. We don't. Everything is holding, so I think we're in good shape. I'm quite confident that unless we get a 200 millimeter dump Tuesday and Wednesday, that's a whole different ballgame then.
There's a lot of points to keep your eye on around the city. Are there any weak points leading up to Tuesday that may make you nervous?
Not that I'm aware of. There could be weak spots in that dam that or in the dikes that we can't see, but from the visual inspections that our staff and the Army have made, we are confident that the dikes will hold.
And you're speaking of your dikes, but on the Washington side, have you spoken
no
to your counterparts? They already had a dike that failed, so anything on their part?
Other than they had a breach, just like we had a breach. Their breach actually caused our breach, as it turned out, and they have repaired that. Yesterday's event was overtopping of the dike, of their dike, and but I have no knowledge of where they are, if they're 100% complete or 90% complete, because they will have to deal with the next event as well, the next storm, and the continued snow melt from Mount Baker, which ends up running into the Nooksack, and eventually, if it overflows, it's coming this way again in a couple of days.
And any idea when the Huntington Village residents might be able to return? Huntington Village residents may be able to return?
Well, right now this morning there was no water there, so now it's come up 2 feet. So it just depends on what's upstream because it's gravity flow from Nooksack or from Everson to Sumas, the city of Sumas, and then straight into Sumas Prairie. So no, I don't know.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? That's it? Good. Thank you. Our next update will be 2 p.m. tomorrow. Thank you for coming.